Delving into the depths of human psychology unlocks understanding that can forever change your life. You can read countless books, watch terabytes of video material, and tirelessly repeat self-love mantras, but without one key element, all these efforts will remain fruitless. The love that everyone seeks will seem like an unattainable dream. This is not about dry theories, but about a practical key discovered by Carl Jung. This key can radically transform your view of yourself and the world around you. Are you ready to discover it for yourself? If you're here, it means you intuitively feel that there's more to it than just accepting your shadow side or aligning energy flows. True transformation lies in incorporating these insights into everyday life, in achieving changes that have a tangible impact. That's what we're going to talk about. By the end of this narrative, you will not only understand why it has been so difficult to experience love, but you will also receive a clear, actionable strategy for changing your attitude towards yourself and others. This is not just theory, it's a call to action. Remember that the relationships you build are not random. What attracts you and what repels you has deep roots in your inner world. What causes us sympathy or, conversely, repels us in others is a reflection of our own internal contradictions that have not yet found their resolution. Think of a person who has recently stirred up a storm of emotions in you, whether admiration or dislike. Their appearance in your life was not a random coincidence. Perhaps you are drawn to people who make you feel uncomfortable and insecure, or you are annoyed by those who demonstrate qualities that you cannot accept even in yourself. Today you have the opportunity to use this mirror to understand what aspects of your personality still need attention and healing. Until you do, you will continue to look for love where it is not. Instead of wondering why someone behaves a certain way, ask yourself, what does this situation tell me about myself? The mirror law, which operates in relationships, has a deeper meaning than it seems at first glance. If someone evokes strong emotions in you, you see in them a reflection of your shadow side. Pay attention to recurring scenarios in your relationships. Consistency in preferences for certain types of people, as well as conscious avoidance of others, are important indicators of internal personality processes. Feelings experienced towards others, whether strong attraction or clear rejection, are two sides of the same coin, each of which carries information about the person themselves. Understanding these feelings opens the way to genuine love for oneself and others. In the case of a strong attraction to a particular person, it is helpful to ask about the qualities that evoke admiration. Perhaps these qualities reflect potential not yet realized or developed in oneself. For example, attraction to spontaneous personalities may indicate a need for more freedom and flexibility in one's own life, which seems too controlled and structured. Similarly, a feeling of rejection towards certain traits in other people may be related to suppressed or unrecognized aspects of one's own personality. Irritation caused by arrogance may indicate one's own struggle with a hidden sense of superiority or an unrealized desire for order. People sometimes hesitate to face the truth, but self-analysis is a powerful tool that requires utmost honesty with oneself. You must be prepared to see those aspects of your personality that were previously carefully hidden, because it is from this awareness that the process of genuine healing begins. People who most often question a person's actions are often their best mentors. Those who cause the most irritation can point to deep-seated emotional wounds that have not yet healed. Such encounters are not accidental, they serve as signposts guiding a person on the path of self-improvement. These people are a kind of karmic mirror, reflecting the hidden corners of the subconscious. Until a person realizes this, they will repeatedly attract similar situations and relationships into their life until they learn a lesson from them. It is important to remember that just as other people serve as a mirror for a person, they themselves reflect them. The reactions of others are often a projection of their own internal contradictions. Understanding this allows you to react to what is happening with greater empathy and calmness. Instead of taking a defensive position or going on the offensive, it is worth looking at the situation from a different angle. Realizing that the external world is a reflection of one's internal state can fundamentally change not only interpersonal relationships but also a person's entire life. This understanding can be the starting point for a profound transformation that begins within the individual. Working on oneself involves not only identifying established patterns of behavior, but also transforming them. When a person realizes which part of their personality is projected into difficult relationships, they have the opportunity to purposefully heal and integrate those aspects of their self that are weakened or underdeveloped. As they progress in this work, relationships with others will begin to change naturally. It is important to remember that the integration process occurs gradually, and one should not expect instant results. It is necessary to observe one's reactions from the position of an inquisitive researcher, without judgment and with sincere interest. Over time, it will become noticeable that people who previously evoked strong emotional reactions lose the ability to exert the same influence. Healthy and harmonious relationships are a natural result of this internal work. As one progresses on the path of self-improvement and internal harmonization, people who reflect their healed and whole aspects, rather than past traumas and emotional wounds, begin to be drawn into their life. The desire to seek in others what is lacking in oneself gives way to building connections based on mutual self-sufficiency and wholeness. True love blossoms precisely on this path of self-discovery, when feeling arises not from need and lack, but from inner unity and completeness. In such relationships, a space is created for mutual development and personal growth, rather than a trap of emotional dependence. There is no longer a need for someone to fill the internal void, as the person themselves becomes self-sufficient and complete. However, the part of the personality that a person tends to reject often becomes the cause of sabotage in relationships. It is impossible to truly love without accepting oneself completely. It is important to think about what one dislikes about oneself and what is carefully hidden from others. This shadow of the personality, if not integrated, will continue to be projected onto others, creating insecurity and conflict. For example, if arrogance in someone is irritating, it may be a reflection of a suppressed trait in oneself. In the depths of the human consciousness lies a part that fears the manifestation of arrogance. This same part may be prone to attraction to personalities next to whom there is a feeling of one's own insignificance, which may indicate a subconscious feeling of inferiority. The task is to learn to integrate one's shadow, not striving for unattainable perfection, but striving for the integrity of the personality. True love and acceptance become possible only when all aspects of the self are present and recognized. Accepting one's shadow implies not only recognizing negative traits, but also discovering hidden abilities that have so far remained unclaimed. By rejecting certain aspects of themselves, individuals come into conflict with themselves, erecting an invisible barrier that prevents the development of deep and meaningful relationships that they so strongly dream of. This internal split leads to the search in other people for those qualities that a person cannot accept in themselves. Each harsh condemnation towards another becomes a reflection in the mirror, pointing to those traits that cause the greatest rejection in oneself. In the depths of each person, there is something that has not yet received full recognition. It is worth taking a close look at one's most vivid emotional responses, because it is in them that valuable life lessons lie. Perhaps irritation is caused by someone else's vulnerability, which may be related to the fear of one's own fragility. Or, on the contrary, the excessive ambition of others strikes a nerve because the person himself does not allow himself to fully strive for success and recognition. Shadow aspects of the personality are reflected in relationships with others. Often, people are attracted to those who embody suppressed character traits. An irresistible attraction to dominant personalities may indicate a hidden desire to show more power and self-confidence. A constant search for partners in need of rescue may indicate one's own need for care and attention. Relationship sabotage is a subtle process that can happen unnoticed. The fear of being abandoned pushes a person to be the first to break the connection, thereby avoiding potential pain. The fear of being under someone's control can manifest itself in the rejection of any attempts to get closer. Deep within the human psyche lie intricate patterns of behavior that manifest as dislike and rejection towards certain traits in others, even if those traits are harmless or even appealing. These consistent reaction patterns are not random coincidences. They represent the expression of unconscious defense mechanisms born from the shadow side of the personality. The process of shadow integration requires considerable courage and begins with a willingness to face the truth, to acknowledge the existence of these hidden aspects of oneself without succumbing to self-judgment. Whenever a strong feeling of aversion towards someone arises, it is helpful to ask oneself, where do I find the manifestation of this in myself? The purpose of this question is not self-flagellation, but rather a pursuit of deeper self-knowledge and understanding of one's behavioral motives. Shadow integration also involves releasing suppressed parts of the personality in a safe and supportive environment. If a person has once rejected their creative potential, they should find a space where they can freely express their creative impulses. If they have deprived themselves of the opportunity to express deep feelings, they should allow themselves to be vulnerable with people they trust. Over time, these previously rejected aspects of the personality will transform from internal obstacles into valuable sources of strength and inspiration. One effective exercise is writing a letter to one's shadow. In this letter, one should acknowledge its existence, express gratitude for the protection it has provided, and declare one's intention to lovingly embrace it into one's life. This act of recognition and acceptance is an important step on the path to personal wholeness and harmony. Delving into the depths of self-analysis can become a starting point on the path to comprehensive reconciliation with oneself. The greatness of this transformative process lies in a paradoxical truth. Accepting one's own shadow sides leads to gaining clarity, and befriending imperfections contributes to becoming an authentic personality. It is this authenticity that opens the gates to true intimacy with others. The deepest and most fulfilling relationships flourish where two souls meet in their entirety, with their light and darkness, without trying to suppress or reject any part of their nature. In such a union, the need for someone to complete them disappears, as each already feels whole. There is no longer a need to project fears and doubts onto others, as they are already accepted as an integral part of oneself. Relationships are bestowed not only for enjoyment, but also for personal growth through them. Every conflict, every trial, every disappointment is an invaluable opportunity for deeper self-knowledge. In this continuous process, the true essence of love is understood. Love is not just a goal, but rather a fascinating journey into the depths of self-discovery. Until a person realizes this truth, they will be doomed to repeat the same mistakes, like a vicious circle. In this journey, love appears not as an ephemeral illusion promising only disappointment, but as a powerful tool for personal growth and self-analysis. When love is perceived solely as a source of serene happiness and comfort, its true transformative power remains unnoticed. Relationships, in all their complexity and diversity, become the most valuable life lessons, most accurately reflecting our essence. Each person who appears on the path of life carries a certain lesson, and until that lesson is learned, fate will repeatedly present similar situations, changing only the scenery. Patterns in relationships are not mere coincidence. Looking back on one's love history, one can notice recurring motifs that bind together seemingly disparate episodes. Perhaps a person constantly attracts emotionally unavailable partners, or finds themselves in relationships where their chosen one needs constant rescue and support. Consistent patterns of behavior in relationships become a kind of call for deep self-analysis, signaling the existence of certain internal wounds longing to be recognized and healed. Attachment theory suggests that experiences in the earliest childhood relationships form certain scenarios that continue to be reproduced in adulthood. For example, if a person has learned from childhood that love is something inconsistent and unpredictable, they will strive for similar relationships in adulthood. And the point here is not that such a choice brings satisfaction, but that it is simply familiar and known. Awareness of these consistent patterns becomes the first step on the path to change. The real purpose of romantic love is not to give cloudless happiness, although it can become a pleasant addition. The true purpose of love is to reveal aspects of personality that go unnoticed by others and from which one might want to hide. The deepest fears, defense mechanisms, and unspoken desires surface in moments of intimacy. And when conflict arises with a partner, the most important question is not who is right and who is wrong. So what lies behind our reactions and attractions? A seemingly insignificant remark that causes a storm of indignation may be related to a deeply hidden insecurity. An excessive desire for control may mask a fear of loneliness. Such revelations are invaluable for those who strive for personal growth. Our sympathies also carry a message. Often we are attracted to people who embody qualities that we ourselves would like to develop. If someone's freedom evokes admiration, it may reflect one's own desire for greater independence. If another person's creativity inspires, it is likely that unrealized creative potential lies dormant within us. The strongest attractions point the way to hidden opportunities. Even disappointments in love, however painful, carry the potential for growth. After the end of a relationship, a person has two paths open to them: to blame the partner and repeat past mistakes, or to look in the mirror and ask themselves, what role did I play in this situation? A person's reaction to loss shapes their future, determining whether they become embittered or learn a valuable life lesson from it. Emotional intimacy in a relationship is not about finding the perfect partner, but about striving for mutual development. When two people take responsibility not only for personal happiness, but also for joint progress, any difficulties become an opportunity to overcome internal barriers and heal. This approach, paradoxically, leads to the deepest and most lasting happiness. A person ceases to depend on perfect circumstances or a perfect partner, finding satisfaction in their own growth and in how the partner reflects their strengths and weaknesses. The turning point comes when a person stops blaming fate for failed relationships and asks, why do I keep choosing these kinds of partners? Changing perspective restores control over the situation, allowing one to realize that they are not a victim of circumstances or other people's decisions, but a conscious participant in their life. A person is the architect of their personal life, and looking at love as an opportunity for self-improvement requires courage. You must be prepared to face uncomfortable truths, revise outdated views, and abandon those ideas about yourself that are no longer useful. However, the reward for this is great. Genuine relationships, a deeper understanding of yourself, and the ability to love not out of need, but out of your own desire. If the same scenario is constantly repeated in relationships, the reason lies in the depths of the subconscious. These repeating patterns of behavior are not accidental, but are a signal that old emotional traumas need healing. If a person is attracted to those who cause pain, it indicates the need to heal old wounds. Perhaps deep down there is a feeling of one's own inferiority if a partner capable of supporting and strengthening has not yet been found. Today there is an opportunity to learn to recognize these patterns and break out of the vicious circle in order to become healthier and build more conscious relationships. If no decisive steps are taken, then people who do not bring true satisfaction will continue to be drawn into life. Harmful scenarios in relationships are like invisible spirals, reproduced time and time again with relentless accuracy. You can change partners, but the overall dynamic remains the same. This is not bad luck or a coincidence, but a consequence of deeply rooted attitudes in the subconscious. These automatic patterns of behavior govern decisions, often unconsciously. These ingrained habits usually form in childhood, when the meaning of love and the principles of relationships are first understood. If growing up took place in an atmosphere where love was conditional on achievements, then in adulthood there will be a need for constant confirmation of one's own importance. If love was accompanied by criticism, then it is likely that it will only be comfortable in relationships where there is always an element of conflict. Often people feel safe in familiar situations, even if they cause pain, which is why many cannot break the vicious circle of toxic relationships. Attempts to build relationships doomed to short-term success often lead to the repetition of the same scenarios with different partners. The key to positive change lies in developing self-awareness. It is important to look at your past experience as a film, identifying recurring patterns of behavior. Do you find yourself feeling abandoned, drawn to emotionally unavailable people, or losing your identity in relationships? Such recurring situations are not random coincidences but indicate deep emotional wounds. At the heart of every destructive pattern in relationships lies a persistent belief system. An unconscious attraction to wrong partners may stem from a subconscious belief in one's own unworthiness. The feeling of control in relationships may reflect a hidden conviction of being unable to manage one's own life independently. These subconscious attitudes are like invisible magnets, attracting situations that confirm them. Neurobiology confirms that these patterns are rooted not only at the conscious level. Psychologically, certain behaviors are not just imprinted on the mind but are also firmly entrenched in the neural structures of the brain. Repeatedly performing the same actions strengthens the corresponding neural pathways, forming ingrained habits. If a person experiences similar relationships for a long time, their brain begins to perceive them as self-evident, as a kind of norm. In such situations, it is crucial to consciously break these vicious cycles. This requires increased self-awareness and the deliberate creation of new, contrasting experiences. One effective method is to identify one's own emotional triggers, situations that provoke disproportionate reactions. For example, a slight delay on the part of a partner may trigger an acute sense of abandonment, or an innocent remark about appearance may generate deep self-doubt. These triggers serve as windows providing access to the most intimate emotional wounds. The healing process begins with taking responsibility for one's own behavioral patterns. This does not mean self-flagellation or finding fault, but rather acknowledging one's role in maintaining these cyclical processes. As long as a person blames others or adopts a victim mentality, they remain trapped in these recurring patterns. Genuine change becomes possible only when a person takes responsibility for their life and their reactions. The path to healing begins with recognizing oneself as the creator of one's own destiny. Restoring the connection with the body becomes a key element in overcoming destructive behavioral patterns. Addiction in relationships manifests similarly to other forms of dependence. The body sends signals long before a person is trapped in familiar patterns. It is important to learn to recognize these precursors, whether it is euphoria, a deceptive sense of security, or a painful feeling of comfort. Consciously observing these feelings opens the possibility of developing new adaptive responses. An equally important step is establishing healthy boundaries, not only in relation to others but also in relation to oneself. For those who tend to lose themselves in relationships, it is vital to form habits that support the connection with their own self. If narcissistic personalities are repeatedly encountered, one should predefine the limits of acceptable behavior that one is no longer willing to tolerate. Establishing boundaries is a powerful act of self-love and the first step towards self-healing. Overcoming established behavioral patterns is not just about rejecting the old, it is a bold step towards a new life. Real change occurs when a person decides to act differently, even if it causes discomfort or seems alien. If a person is accustomed to emotional outbursts and dramatic situations, calm and stable relationships may initially seem bland and uninteresting. Such irritation is a perfectly natural reaction, as the brain actively forms new neural connections, mastering different ways of experiencing intimacy and love. If due attention is paid to this process, subconscious traumas will cease to dictate decisions. It will become possible to consciously choose healthier, deeper, and more fulfilling relationships. This is what will break the vicious cycle of recurring scenarios. The point is not to change the partner, but to learn to love oneself in a new way. It is important to remember that getting rid of old patterns is not a one-time event, but an ongoing process. There will inevitably be moments when the past reminds itself, when old habits try to take over again. However, each time, by recognizing these relapses and making a conscious decision to move forward, a person strengthens their ability to change and creates a foundation for a happier and more harmonious life. At the same time, the new reality is strengthened as the neuroplasticity of the brain becomes a reliable ally. Each deliberate decision is like restructuring the brain, opening new horizons. The true goal is not to achieve a perfect relationship, but to gain the awareness that grants freedom of choice. When an individual is freed from the power of subconscious programs, it becomes possible to create relationships that reflect their true essence, rather than the painful scars of the past. This kind of love is born not from need or dependence, but from wholeness and inner freedom. True love is not found, but created, starting with unconditional self-love. In this case, love ceases to be something external, becoming the very essence of a person. This realization changes everything, because until an individual understands this truth, they will seek in the external world what is hidden within. Love is not something to be given or received. It is what a person is, and when they live in this state, their relationships cease to be a source of suffering and become a source of joy and inspiration. Love is not a destination, but rather a journey, a natural manifestation of a person's inner wealth. Society often instills the idea that love is an external factor, a force that will descend if you are lucky. However, despite the allure of this romantic idea, it encourages passivity and dependence, forcing you to wait for someone else to notice and love you. It is fundamentally wrong to assume that this is the true nature of love. Genuine love originates deep within the soul, like an inexhaustible spring. It is not something to be extracted from those around you. As long as a person seeks love externally, they are doomed to a constant sense of lack, like a cracked vessel that will never be filled to the brim. After all, love that comes from the outside always has its conditions and boundaries. True change begins with the realization that everyone is their own main source of love. You don't need to ask permission to love yourself. You don't need to perform feats to deserve it. Self-acceptance is not a prize for perfection, but an inherent right of everyone, a state of harmony attainable after destroying the barriers built around oneself. In a world where a person's value is often measured by achievements, appearance, or success, unconditional self-love becomes a real revolution in consciousness. This means treating yourself with unwavering respect and understanding, both in moments of triumph and in times of failure. It means treating yourself with the same kindness and support that you would offer a close friend in trouble. Personal transformation entails changes in your social circle. A person driven by an inner sense of inadequacy tends to attract those who reflect their emotional wounds. At the same time, a person living in harmony with themselves attracts people who share their love and acceptance. This is the fundamental difference between relationships based on codependency and deep, genuine intimacy. Genuine self-love has nothing to do with narcissism. On the contrary, narcissism stems from deep insecurity and an inner vacuum that the individual desperately tries to fill with external recognition. True self-love implies recognizing and honoring one's human essence, which allows one to see other people more clearly and with greater empathy, since there is no need to project one's own unmet needs onto them. The practice of conscious self-love and compassion is a powerful tool for self-discovery. When faced with difficult emotions such as fear, sadness, anger, or shame, it is important not to suppress or condemn them, but to accept them and allow them to be. These feelings are not mistakes to be corrected, but an integral part of the human experience. This radical acceptance transforms not only the inner world, but also interpersonal relationships. It is worth remembering that love is not a final goal, but a daily practice. On the path of self-discovery, there are inevitable moments when loving yourself becomes especially difficult, when old patterns of behavior reappear. However, each conscious decision to return to yourself strengthens inner harmony. Paradoxically, when the search for love outside ceases, the realization comes that it has always been inside, like a fish vainly searching for the ocean in which it is already swimming. A person inherently lives in love, they only need to recognize it. The task is not to find love, but to realize it, allow it to manifest, and express it, first of all towards oneself. then this love will naturally extend to everything around. This is the truth that sages have been trying to convey to humanity for centuries. Living in accordance with this truth, every relationship, every meeting, and every moment becomes an expression of this profound truth.